Good afternoon and welcome to the Amphitheater Hot Shop here at the Corning Museum of Glass. Today we've got a very special guest artist, Sofía Hernández Romo from Guadalajara, Mexico is here. Let's give her a nice warm welcome to the shop. And working with Sofía on some of her designs is our team, Helen Tegler, who's gathering glass out of the furnace right now. Helen is the lead gaffer. She's going to be helped out by some other gaffers. We've got Catherine Ayers here, Katie Hubbs, and we have Sammy Verdino. And they're all working with Sofía to make a beautiful vase here that is a cube form. And they're going to put some additive texture bits on the surface of this piece. So Helen has just taken the final gather. They've built the bubble up already. There's several layers here that have been gathered out of our furnace. And Sofía is helping out too. Sofía is a glass artist as well. Sofía does kiln working, kiln casting, slumping, fusing, and that type of glass, so we call that warm glass. This is hot glass here, so we're working with the molten glass from a furnace and using furnaces to heat the glass, using traditional glass blowing methods and very modern methods as well. So Sofía has a bit of history with glass. Her father owns a glass factory where they make bottles and industrial glass. Her grandfather owned a glass factory, so Sofía grew up knowing about glass and its potential, but a factory is not really a great place for an artist to work. And so she learned about glass by coming to Corning, actually coming right here and taking some classes at the studio, which is just across the parking lot from the amphitheater here. The studio is a world-class educational facility with a brand new casting center, and it's just been expanded. And they teach glass artists from all over the world at all different levels, from very beginner to experts like Sofía who want to learn about specific techniques. And about a dozen years ago, Sofía took some kiln forming classes, one with Stephen Paul Day and one with Joanna Manousis, who are artists represented here in our collection and who teach over the studio. And she was inspired to take up glass in her own practice, and that has been her focus for the past decade or so. So the pieces that Sofía makes range from intimate vessels to large-scale installations. So it's really hard to pin her down, but her aesthetic carries over from project to project. She works with industrial or interior designers and clients for custom pieces, and she works in lighting, again, tableware, fashion design, a number of different angles for glass. And this is a bit of a new direction for her, using blown glass. Here in her residency, they've been focusing on making some forms that relate to these basalto pieces that she brought here. So basalt is a rock that's pretty abundant around where she's from, and many people work with basalt, and she has some interesting forms here that she's relating some vessel pieces that she's working with Helen on, and inspired by the texture. So for those of you here in the audience, you're more than welcome to come and check these pieces out and look closely at them. We've got a few sitting here that have been made over the past couple of days. We're good? Are we going to? Great. All right, so I guess the live stream is going now. Here we are. I'm going to introduce the team one more time. We're here with Sofía Hernández Romo from Guadalajara, Mexico. Yes, thank you. And the gaffers working with Sofía are Helen Tegler, who's the main gaffer at the bench forming the piece right now. She's assisted by Katie Hubbs and Catherine Ayers, and we also have Sammy Verdino. We've got Jason Thayer on camera, getting everything captured. So we've spent a little time. The live stream started just a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties, but Helen's already got things going. She's got the glass built up that she needs for this piece. I think it's got about 4 gathers, and they're just getting this bubble ready to blow it into a mold that they've made from cinder blocks on the floor here. So they're going to make a cube-formed vase, and Sofía has this ring of basalt here that she's going to use for the lid or for the stopper, some kind of piece that goes on top of the vase that they're going to form. So this piece here, this block, is kind of a scale model of it. So it's a small cube. This one's much bigger. So let's watch as Helen gets this ready to go into the mold. So the mold they made for this is actually made out of cinder blocks. I've never seen this done before. But cinder blocks kind of have a similar texture to basalt. When basalt is cut, it's kind of this rough but homogeneous, chunky stone. And cinder blocks kind of have a similar texture to them, so they're kind of hoping that some of the texture will come off onto the glass as well, because they're really trying to emulate that basalt texture and integrate that into the glass. And that's one of the great features of glass. One of the properties of glass that we really love is that you can figure out ways to make it look like almost any other material, whether it's metal, steel, fabric. That's one of the most amazing things about glass is it's a great chameleon. It can blend in with other materials. But typically we know it as that kind of shiny stuff, right? But there's all kinds of ways we can treat it to make it look like other things. And there's a lot of artists who have really mastered that and used that as part of their techniques and practices. All right, so they're getting ready to go into the mold here on the floor. Helen's carrying that over to the mold block. Here we go. Into the mold it goes. Helen inflates. She traps air in there so it continues to expand. There we go. Do we need to break the mold apart? You got it. All right. There we go. Nice job. Great job. That thing is not lightweight. Is somebody going to help her out there? You got it. All right. A lot of weight there. There's probably about 8 pounds of glass on the end of the pipe. That looks really beautiful. So there you have it. I just learned something today. You can use cinder blocks as a mold. Pretty cool. That's one of the greatest things about having guest artists here who aren't normally blowing glass or don't use glass blowing as part of their practice. They bring us all kinds of ideas that we can try. It's a bit of an experiment. And that's what Sofía's doing here. She's experimenting. She came to us with some ideas about incorporating brass into the surface of the glass. And then she came here, she changed her ideas. And that's one of the cool things about coming here as a guest artist is there's a whole team of people who are really skilled at making glass and with their own ideas about handling the material. And that can have some influence on what the artists are coming in to try. And I think that's what happened here with Sofía. We did some tests with some brass pieces that she sent up to us. And Sometimes you can get brass and copper to work in the glass. It will adhere, and you can embed it inside the glass. Sometimes it won't break, but it's a little risky because it is a different material. And because of that, it's going to move differently as it heats and cools, and it'll cause a lot of stress in the glass, and sometimes it'll break the glass. So Sofía opted not to work with that idea, and instead she's integrating the basalt pieces that she brought to us here. So she's got a friend that cuts and carves basalt, and these are some forms that she was able to get from that shop and bring here to our shop and use as inspiration for various pieces. And so far they've been working primarily on vessel forms, and this is probably the most unique vessel form that they're doing. It's a cube shape. All right, so they're applying just a little excess glass. We call that a pâte patch. It adds a little bit of thickness to the wall of the vessel because we're going to be attaching another rod to the bottom of the vessel called the pâte. That's going to be the finishing handle. So they'll break it off the blowpipe. It'll leave a small hole at the top. That's the opening for the vase. And I'm not sure how they'll finish it off, but I do know they're going to be adding some textured patches that Sofía is composing over here with frit and powders. And we're going to, yeah, I'd love that. And Sofía's here. She's got one of these microphones on, and she said she'd like to talk about the process a little bit too.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I'm doing. Here we have some glass in frit form. What this is just crushed glass, same kind of glass they're using, just in another form. And what I'm doing here, I'm making some puddles, let's say, very controlled puddles.
Puddles, okay.
Yeah, well, I have to call them someone.
Yeah.
We can call it puddles.
I was calling them patches, but
yeah,
puddles
patches.
sounds cooler.
Patches works best.
Yeah.
So we're going to do some patches. I have some ready over here. And I'm mixing a little bit of this smoky gray that they're using in the body of that beautiful cube. And I'm also mixing it with some other tones of gray so that in the end we can tie up the look of the stone to the glass and also get it to have this beautiful texture all around. And it's going to cascade down from the top where this ring of stone is going to be. And it's just going to look, this is even though it's a cube, it's supposed to be an organic form. And I chose the stone in this case.
An example here, yeah.
Yes. So that topper was pushed into the glass while hot so that it would hold it once it was cold.
Very cool.
We cannot leave it here to be fused with the glass because otherwise we would have trouble and this glass would break.
Yeah.
So it expands and contracts at different speeds. So in this case, these tones that I use here were a tad bit too warm on the underside. So we changed that a little bit, and now it's going to look more like when this rock is wet. So it's going to look really pretty in the end.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
And yes, this stone can be found. This is a volcanic stone that comes from very nearby Guadalajara. We have an active volcano that at some point in time erupted and flowed into different veins of lava stone that with the time became part of a mountain. And in that mountain, in that region, there are a lot of artisans that live there, and they actually work all day long with this material, which is very beautiful. Many people might know the basalto from molcajetes, which are made to do some salsa and many other dishes and many other functions. So to bring something from home and integrate it with this beautiful glass, and of course, the abilities of my amazing team here at Corning. It's just been wonderful. It's a great experience. It's just been one of the best weeks. We've been doing so much in such a short time. So I'm really, really grateful to the Corning Museum of Glass for for choosing me for this residency.
Well, we're really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Really, really thrilled to see what you're coming up with here in this residency.
Yeah, it's been so good.
Well, it looks like we're on to the next phase here. We're putting the form onto the punny, so we're switching it up. This is a very traditional part of the process. You see this if you watch our glass blowing demonstrations here at the museum. If we're making a vase or a pitcher or anything like that, it always goes onto a punny. So we start with the bottom and we go to the top. So we're doing some innovative things here, but we're also doing some traditional techniques. And that's pretty much what the process here is founded in, is techniques that go back almost 2,000 years, and the punny is no exception. That's part of almost every piece that we make here at the museum. And that one worked out great. So they broke it free. They're going to build the heat back up on the top, and then they're going to finish the top, similar to how Christina showed you, the pressing the basalt into the hot glass so that it sets in there nicely. And she was talking about using this ring on this piece. So I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but maybe they'll torch a certain area and press it in. I haven't really seen how they do that part yet. So we're all going to see it together. Now, this is a good time to take questions because there's a little bit break in the action while they build that heat back up. Is there anybody here in the live audience that have any questions about the process? You've all been so patient. You've heard me repeat myself a couple of times. Yes, sir. The color, yes. Thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. This gentleman asked about the color and how this is colored, right? So what you saw before when she was building the glass up, you saw a core that had a thin veneer of colored glass in it. So when we make the color for this piece, we use mostly clear glass, but the inside layer is made with a little chunk of this. So this is color bar. This is about 1 kilo of this is a green color, but this is a smoky gray they're using. They would have taken a chunk that's a couple inches long, stuck it onto a blowpipe, and then coated it in clear glass. And then when you blow that through, it glazes the inside of the bubble. So you get a thin veneer of that color inside a clear glass. So that's how we work with color, because it allows us to work with a lot of different colors. We don't need a furnace for the gray, a furnace for the green, a furnace for the clear. We just need the clear glass and then color bar like this, or we can use frit like Sophia's using. It's the same type of colored glass but crushed up into different size grains. And it goes all the way from really rough, like road salt texture, all the way down to powders. And you can get it at different gradations for different textures and things like that. Now, to start with, color comes from metals that are added into the glass. We talked about this a little bit before, but we have the raw forming materials. The sand is the main former for any glass. Our glass has soda ash as a flux, and then the stabilizer is limestone. That's a very common glass. About 98% of the glass that you use or run into on a daily basis is going to be soda lime glass. And then for colors, metals are added to the base glass. So an example is cobalt. I used that before. Cobalt makes blue glass. Cadmium and selenium make reds and oranges. Purple is made with manganese. Tin makes white. So metals make different colors in glass. And those are mixed into the glass in a powdered form. So that's how we get. Are there any other questions around that, sir, that you had? Does that answer your question? So the raw materials in the kiln inside of this, so we have two main furnaces here. The one that you see them working back and forth in is our reheating furnace called the glory hole. And then this furnace in the center, right, this is Kim. Welcome, Kim, to the stage. Hi. Kim's helping out too. This furnace here in the center of the stage has a crucible inside that holds about 1,000 pounds of molten glass. So this is a big vat of almost like molten lava in there, but it's very clean glass. So we just dip in there with the rods, pull it out, and we can work it as it changes from a liquid to a solid. And then we can reheat it when it gets too stiff. If it gets too stiff, though, if it drops in temperature too rapidly, if it gets under 1,000 degrees, the glass is going to break. So that's something to keep in mind as you watch this process. And that's something that the gaffers have in the back of their mind, too, because if you wait just a little too long or if you do something just out of sequence, you're risking the entire piece. So you have to keep that in the back of your head the entire time. The only way they know the temperature of the glass is just through experience, just by doing it and learning by doing it over and over and over and breaking a lot of pieces. So their experience tells them when the glass is approaching 1,000 degrees. And there's some clues that you have, and most of it has to do with color and movement and feel through the irons. So here it's pretty obvious. If you can see color, you can see that the top is the hottest part of that vessel right now, just by the orange color. So that color that you're seeing there is not the final color of the glass. It's gray, but you won't see that until the piece is very close to 1,000 degrees or just under that. That orange color is called black body radiation. Anything that gets that hot, around 2,000 degrees, is going to glow unless it's already burned away or vaporized in the furnace. It's the same reason all the bricks inside of there are glowing. They've gained so much heat energy that they're glowing. Right? So here Helen uses a tool called the Sofietta. She's got some cork tools. This is really good for shaping edges of the glass without putting marks on it, because the cork slowly smolders away. And it's very soft. It's very nice, and it's kind of a rubbery wood, as you know, if you've ever had open a bottle of wine. All right, so at this workstation, Catherine and Kim are working on fusing the little puddles that Sofía, she calls them puddles, has put together. So those are made of crushed up colored glasses, and she used different percentages of different colors to get something that's approximate to the color of the basalt when this is the lighter color, so when it's dry, but then when it's wet like that, you can see it's much darker, so she might, varnish some of these or something. So we've got a bunch of tools that we can make use of here at the bench, and you'll see Helen using probably 30 or 40 different tools through this whole process. The one she just had there is our 8x8 torch, which is a very hot torch. It's fueled with propane and oxygen, so it's an oxypropane torch. The tip of that flame gets to about 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. So when she puts it onto the glass, it will instantly liquefy the surface. And that's a great tool for spot heating areas like this little lip that she's trimming. She didn't want everything collapsing, so she didn't want to get the whole front face hot in the furnace. That's why she used that little torch, so she could direct the heat into one spot. And then you saw her just trim through that area with some scissors to take off some excess glass. And always between each step in the process, we have to reheat the glass because it's always dropping in temperature We have to keep it over 1,000 degrees. We have to keep it hot enough so it's malleable to change its shape. At a certain point, she'll like the shape, and then they're going to idle that form. They'll just keep it over 1,000 degrees and add whatever bits they want. But for now, she's still in the forming stages, so she's getting exactly the shape that Sofía would like on here. Could be a nice Kleenex box holder or something, right? It's going to get a lot more interesting than that. I guarantee it. So I think I mentioned to our live audience about Sofía's background with glass, but Sofía started making glass herself about 12 years ago. She took some classes here at the Corning Museum of Glass and learned about kiln forming. But prior to that, Sofía had some experience with glass. She had seen it growing up. Her father has a glass factory in Guadalajara. Your grandfather had a factory with glass blowers and everything. So yes. Why didn't you go into the factory and say, hey, I want to make some things? Or how did you end up in Corning learning about glass instead of right there at home?
Emailing list, really. So my father always knew about Corning since a long time ago. And he kind of said, like, check this out.
Yeah.
I'll put it right here.
Nice.
So I started checking out the classes, and that was how. But before that, I was working with him full time, and I wanted a little bit of a change because it was an office and just being in a desk kind of job. So I wanted to do a little bit more. I've always loved art. I've always loved painting. It's something that I've always known, and also like the glass, I've always seen it because of the factory that my grandfather had. I would look at all the people blowing glass and doing these cups that are like with the blue rim and like very traditional Mexican kind of.
Tableware and things
tableware.
like that. Yeah, vases and tableware.
And so I discovered the museum, and when I was looking at the classes, I was mesmerized by the fact that you could do like sculptures in solid glass, and I was so shocked because I didn't know how that was possible. So that sparked the curiosity, and from there I was given a scholarship, which I encourage anyone to apply for. They do give a lot of scholarships, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is a great opportunity to come and try something new, just as I did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I feel like this is a full circle moment when I'm like coming back, but coming back in another way. So it is great. And those two classes I took at first were casting classes. So it is very different from this.
Yeah.
And from casting in those two classes, I actually kind of dialed it down and started fusing first.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel very I don't know, able to repeat the whole process again all by myself.
Yeah.
So I started fusing, and once I was like really secure in what and what I had accomplished, I started casting again. So it's been I don't know, many projects from there on, and it's just building
Yeah.
from those two classes here.
I'm definitely like impressed and surprised by the versatility of your
Oh, yeah.
work, and the the whole gamut it covers from tableware to fashion
Yeah.
design and
All kinds of
lighting.
projects.
So a little bit of everything you've tried, and commissions
Yeah.
with interior designers and
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what I've been doing mostly for the 9 years that I had my studio. All mostly commissions, and from time to time, I did get the time to put in a project that was more like a lot of experimentation, and some pieces came out really nicely. Ended up selling those and just kept the cycle on going. But yeah, mostly commissions. It was what allowed me to experiment more. Like, I got the money from the commissions, invested
Yeah.
in it, like in the whole process again, and kept it going for these 9 years.
That's great.
Yes,
That's
it's been
terrific.
great.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
it's exciting to see you continuing new things, trying new things.
Yep.
So this is great.
Thank you.
I'll leave you to
Yeah,
your
I'm
work.
just gonna
Yeah.
be like checking that out.
So at this point, Catherine has fused the puddles together. So she got those hot on the kiln shelf. They started flowing together, so they basically glue themselves together with heat. And now Helen's picking those up off the kiln shelf with some tweezers and using the hot torch to fuse those onto the surface of the vase. So she just sticks it in one spot, then heats the various areas and pushes it down. By pushing it, it helps to fuse it in place. And then Katie will take an overall heat, and you'll see everything gets orange. This helps to kind of homogenize the temperature of everything, make sure it's all fused down there permanently. Questions? Anybody? Brady, do we have any online questions? Nope. No? Okay. I must be doing a really good job explaining the process. It's pretty simple. This is a very direct process. And it's really very effective to, emulating that texture that you see on the basalt. Sophia, do you think your family's watching you online right now? No, she's too busy. Sophia, do you think your family's watching you on the live stream right now?
My mom and my dad surely are.
Okay.
And I hope my husband too.
Yeah. Nice.
I
Nice.
mean, I watch his charreadas all the time, so
Yeah,
you better watch mine.
Yeah, he gets to see your performance as well. Looking great. All right, so Catherine's coming over. More of the puddles. And it's just the same with those. We have to keep those over 1,000 degrees. The kiln shelf holds the heat for quite a while, so it helps them to kind of stay insulated. And they just kind of puzzle it together on there, a little bit at a time. They don't want to overheat with the torch so as to avoid distorting the bubble. And you can see as she heats it with the torch, it becomes flexible. And she can push it into place. And then when Katie heats it again, that big heat from the furnace really helps to seat everything into the surface. So it fuses it on there permanently. So because Sofía is familiar with glass, I came in her earlier and she was actually making a piece herself. So she's done a little bit of glass blowing. She said this was the second time she tried it. And just before lunchtime, after they made their more serious, beautiful pieces, Helen spent a little bit of time to help Sofía make her own drinking glass. So that was kind of fun to see. She's official glass blower now. For those of you who've never seen a demo here at the Corning Museum, you may be wondering, how do we see inside of the furnace like that? Is there a camera inside of the furnace? The answer is no, there's no camera inside of the furnace, but it's behind the furnace, and it's looking through a little window made of fused silica glass. Now, our glass here softens around 2,100 degrees. And that furnace is about 2,100 degrees. Fused silica glass has to get about 3,500 degrees to soften. So we have a nice window in there. It won't melt. And we have a camera behind it with some air blowing on it. And that allows us to see inside of that furnace. And we like to talk about fused silica glass because it's one of the many, many innovations in glass that has been important to the world that was invented right here in Corning. So I'll tell you about some other uses for that little piece of fused silica glass. Fused silica glass is also used for space shuttle windows, right? So, or space capsules. So it was invented here in the 30s. It was such an expensive glass to make. It was very durable. And nobody really needed it until NASA came along and needed it for space travel, to go in and out of the atmosphere, so windows wouldn't melt off a space capsule. So that was one of the early uses. And then nowadays, its biggest use is optical fiber cables. So you've actually all used it today. If you've looked at the internet at all, you've made use of fused silica glass because that is the core of optical fiber cables. Invented right here in Corning in the 1930s. You folks have any questions? So part of why Sofía is here is in celebration of Latin artists. And we have a great show by some artists who are also from Guadalajara. The De La Torre brothers, Jaimex and Einar De La Torre, have a retrospective exhibition right here in our Contemporary Art and Design wing going on right now. It's through the end of the year. So you're going to want to make sure to check that out. It's an incredible, incredible exhibition, and it shows a good cross-section of their work over the past 25 years. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And even though they live in the same town, it's a big town, they have not yet met each other. So hopefully Sofía will get to meet the De La Torre brothers, and they'll become quick friends. I think they will. It's a small world. The De La Torre brothers are also working on a large piece that's going to be installed here permanently at the museum in our contemporary, well, not permanently, nothing's permanent, but it's going to be put on display as beyond the exhibition that they're putting on in our galleries, and it'll be there and into the future. It's a large mandala piece that we helped them to make some parts for this spring. And they're going to come back in November to finish that up and install it in our Contemporary Art and Design wing. Yes, sir. So how long will the glass have to cool to be able to see the color? So you're correct in catching that you're not seeing the true color there. The heat is distorting the true color. We're getting to the point where it's almost there. It's going to look a little darker. When it's cool to the touch, when it's room temperature, it's going to be about like this. Because we're using the same color palette here, so it'll be just about like that. There'll be a little bit of a fade from light to dark, and then the stuff around the top that's kind of mossing on there is about the same, maybe just a little bit lighter. So how long? You won't see the true color on that until tomorrow. Yeah. When it's finished, it'll be pretty close. It'll just be a little darker. Some colors like reds and oranges and yellows and greens in particular, you won't see the actual color until the next day, until it's room temperature. Say again? Yes. Yeah, so probably tomorrow afternoon that'll come out of the kiln and we'll put it on display. This might take just a little bit longer maybe, but yeah, I think by tomorrow afternoon that'll be ready to go. If you don't, most certainly there'll be images online as a follow-up to the live stream that we're putting on, so that everybody who's watched this piece coming together can see what it looks like in its final form. Now, one thing you'll notice is that they have to always balance the piece. It's always, when they work on one side, it starts to sag down. Gravity's always pulling, so we're always turning and balancing. And that's what Katie's focused on now, is just keeping that piece on center on the pipe. And making sure that it stays over 1,000 degrees. Sofía, how's this one looking to you?
This one is great because I actually made the patches larger, so that way we can cover more area in less time. So right over here. And I actually think like the colors came out perfect because now we have more contrast
Yeah.
and it ties up beautifully with the stone.
Nice. Thank you. So she's using 3 or 4 different colors in those little puddles, and to get the right look, she's been playing with the proportion of each color in that mix. The glass that we're using today, believe it or not, is also from Mexico. And this is a glass that Sofía is very familiar with working. So when her kiln work, she works with the same type of glass, so she's familiar with its working properties. A lot of people wonder where we get the sand for our glass, and it varies depending upon the supplier we get the glass from. This glass that we use here comes to us already melted once. So we get it in the form of these little nuggets that we charge in at the end of the day. This is called cullet. You can also get the raw ingredients mixed proportionally to each other and melt from the raw ingredients. So we do that as well. There's companies that do that. And the sand comes from different places. Texas is a source. Washington State. Tijuana is where the sand for this glass comes from. And then there's glasses from Europe. They get their sand from Belgium and France and places where there's silica quarries. So our sand doesn't come from the desert or off a beach. It's mined from underground because that's where you get the purest silica, is from quartz mines. It's pulverized into a fine powder, and it's refined. They're able to remove constituents that are going to cause problems, like metals. One thing they like to pull out of the sand is iron, because iron will make green glass. Coke bottle green, right? That's because there's some residual iron in there. It's not very pure sand. And there's ways that the industry is able to remove some of that stuff and make their sands nicer, which I don't fully understand yet, but I'm learning about a little bit. But that's a whole industry in and of itself, is mining silica. You could make glass from just about any sand, as long as you got it hot enough, but you're never going to know exactly what it's going to look like. If you melted beach sand, there'd be a lot of other little things in there, pieces of brick, a lot of iron oxide, who knows what else, shells, pieces of anything. So really the best glass to use, or the best sand to use for any kind of glass, is mined. Can we use recycled glass? So we can recycle our own glass with itself, but we couldn't take bottles and mix it with our glass because it's a different recipe, and they would move at different rates as they cooled and heated up. When you recycle glass, when you truly recycle glass by remelting it, you have to melt it with the same type of glass as itself. But in our typical melting process, we'll add in maybe 25% of already pre-melted cullet that we made. That's our scrap. So you have to sort out the colors from each other to melt them with one another. But yeah, actually makes a better glass when you melt broken glass with new glass. If you use about 20-25% of cullet, it actually helps the glass to melt quicker. But yeah, we do recycle our own glass. We recycle our clear glass. The county takes any scrap glass that's mixed up that we can't recycle. They crush it up and use it in aggregates for paving roads and layers of landfill, things like that. So it can be used for other things because of its nature. It doesn't compress and it allows airflow. So it's very good in landfills and such as well to help aerate. Do you have a question? Okay. Yeah, check it out. Yeah, you're more than welcome to come check these pieces out. Yeah. Right. So the question is, using different fuels, heating with electric versus heating with gas. Does one melt the glass quicker? We like just like a chef in a kitchen, gas is a better heat for us. It's more penetrating. It melts quicker. If you go up to the innovation stage, that's all electric. Everything's melted with electric heating elements. And if you watch a demo there, the heats take a lot longer. It takes a lot longer for the heat to penetrate in. So very similar to kitchen work. The gaffers prefer gas to electric. But electric has its benefits too. One benefit is that we can take an electric hot shop and put it on a cruise ship. We can't do that with a gas one. And that's why we developed an electric studio here at the Corning Museum, because we had outreach programs that were put onto cruise ships. And we don't do that anymore, but that's one of the reasons we got into kind of developing that type of studio. But yeah, there is a difference. It definitely makes a difference, just like in a kitchen, Great question. Anybody else? Any other questions, curiosities, comments, criticisms? So we're really getting the texture on there. It's looking very mossy or basalty. Yeah.
So the fire brick, how does that go up? That's what's inside the oven that can just withstand all kind of temperatures?
So the question is, how hot can we get the fire bricks in the furnace? The different types of fire bricks have different temperature ratings. So the ones in that one, I think the limit is about 2,400 degrees. And we only heat that to about 2,150 degrees tops, maybe 22 occasionally. But if you get it much hotter, you can actually burn the bricks out. You can melt the bricks. So there's hardier bricks for that, for going even higher than that. Yeah, and these are insulating fire bricks, so they're very lightweight and porous. because the air acts as a little bit of an insulator inside of the brick. So you pick it up, it looks like a heavy thing, but you pick it up, it's very chalky and light. And then we have fire bricks that are hard bricks, where it's going to there's going to be more action. Maybe some glass is going to get on it, because the glass will dissolve the bricks as well. Molten glass is one of the most corrosive substances, and as long as it's molten, if we dropped it on the floor and kept torches on it, kept it molten, it would eventually eat through the floor. But if you drip it on the floor right now, nothing's really it'll just cool down. It might damage the floor a little bit, but it's not going to eat through it. But even the liner in the furnace that we put the glass in, we have to replace every now and then because... So the furnace that we have here is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The crucible inside will last us probably 8 years, maybe 6 to 8 years if we're lucky.
It's amazing that 2,000 years ago they
It is amazing.
could do this stuff.
It is amazing. I mean, 2,000 years ago, they were doing the same stuff. They were melting glass with wood fire. They maybe didn't have the sophisticated materials that we make our crucibles out of, alumina, zirconium, silicate, but they were probably using a clay that was very hard and durable, and maybe their crucibles only lasted a couple days. But they would work it a little bit differently too, because when we're finished with our process, we take the piece, we put it in a separate oven and cool it electrically, so using electric heating elements because there's a lot more control. In ancient times, they would put the finished glass in a chamber above the melting furnace and then close everything up when the crucibles were drained, and everything would cool down as a thermal mass together. So that was kind of the earliest way they started cooling the glass slowly, is putting it in their kiln above the firing chamber and letting everything cool down together. Just stop firing, plug it up. And that's the most basic way of cooling the glass properly, annealing the glass. And then a lot of different techniques developed from that. But here, the modern method is placing the finished piece in an electric oven. A computer controls the rate at which goes down. But that was all done naturally or just by eye, or they had their own ways to figure it out. But you can go into our galleries. You can see pieces from 3,000 years ago that were annealed properly. They're still intact, and it's absolutely amazing and to think that people were making things like this 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. Yeah, you're welcome. Great questions. Thank you. So Catherine is feeding some heat. She's using that torch on the back side of the piece just to keep it over 1,000 degrees. Helen's using the hot torch on the lip so she can do some details there on that side of the piece. So Catherine's using that fluffier torch just to keep things over 1,000 degrees. Helen was using the hot torch to get stuff soft enough to change the shape of. So then, there we go. Now Sophia's using the heat and pressing in that sort of top piece. And this is going to make it so that piece will sit in there when it's all finished. So I think that's probably just about the last step in finishing this piece. So now they're just going to work on balancing out the temperature. The top that they just tooled was just around 2,000 degrees. It was soft enough for Sophia to press the basalt in there and get an impression. The back side of it, Catherine is supplementing the heat a little bit, but that's probably maybe about 800 degrees cooler, and that variance in temperature isn't very good. So they're going to just try and balance out the temperature, get things homogeneous, and then they'll break it free from the pipe, or the punty, rather, and load that into our annealing oven for its slow cooling. This piece will probably take at least 10 or 12 hours to cool down. They might want to slow down the cooling just because it's such an amazing piece. It's got a lot of texture and layers. And the slower you cool it, the more it relieves the stress that would break the glass from thermal shock. So just some fine tuning. Looks like kind of like doing dental work on an alien or something right now. And again, the final colors, you're not going to see those until the piece is down to room temperature. You get a little bit, you can see it's a little gray, but everything's going to look a little darker right now while it's hot. So a lot of teamwork here. Ring of fire. Okay. So it looks like Catherine is gearing up. She's putting on her personal protective equipment for loading the kiln. So Catherine's going to carry this piece into the kiln. She puts a face shield on. She has a fireproof hoodie on and gloves that are woven with Kevlar fibers. So she can actually hold on to this piece with her hands using those gloves, even though it's over 1,000 degrees. She'll have about a minute to hold on to that before it starts burning her hands. So this is how we hold on to the hot glass, one of the ways. All right, a little water at the joint between where the pâte connects to the vase, and that's going to cause little micro fissures to grow. And then Helen can tap that iron with the back side of the tweezers. That shock wave should break it free. She'll use a paddle here. There we go. Here we have it. Nice job, team. Yeah, let's hear it for the team and so for Sofía. Congratulations. Another beautiful piece in the annealer.
It's gonna
What do you
look
think,
great.
Sofía?
Sorry?
What do you think?
I am so excited about this one. It's gonna be great.
It's a beautiful piece.
So yeah, they did a great job. So round of applause for you guys.
Yeah, let's
Thank
hear
you
it for
so
the team, you
much.
guys.
That was
It's
great.
a lot of hard work.
Thank you so much. That was great.
All right, so that piece is going in there. It's going to spend the night there and cool down very slowly to remove the stress. It's just like sending it to the spa. It's a little stress relief. And we'll see that tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. To those of you online, thanks for joining us at the Corning Museum of Glass and seeing our demo with Sofía Hernández Romo.